was a time when I believed that if I only had 5 minutes to spend in the garden, it wasn't really enough time to get productively busy. And there was a time when I considered 5 minutes too fleeting to sit, enjoy a break, and relax outside. But somewhere along the line, my perception of time shifted. And now I realise it doesn't matter if garden tasks are spread across many days in small stolen moments, they can be just as effective. So each hydrangea here has been deadheaded on a different day, as and when time allows. Admittedly, there's nothing like a whole generous chunk of a weekend dedicated to jobs in the garden, but there's still something incredibly satisfying about small changes made in minutes. Watering our cosmos seedlings that have germinated in pots on windowsills is the 5-minute daily duty filled with pure pleasure of seeing new life generated from a tiny seed, knowing that 5 minutes of watering is an investment for months of colour in the summer season to come. And finding 5 soothing minutes to soak up the garden atmosphere can calibrate the mind for the whole day and offer up little moments in nature to treasure over a lifetime. Welcome to our April garden tour for a full 5 minutes plus 20 minutes more. Everyone describes the colour of gorgeous Tulip Negrita differently. Royal purple, beetroot purple, deep violet, Tyrian purple, intense lilac. Gardening guru Monty Don grows them in his paradise garden, describing them as pale purple touched with mauve. I see the petals as a sumptuous magenta purple. It's because each petal is a combination of different colours along the blue, violet, mauve and pink spectrum that we all experience them a little differently, and colours evolve as petals mature and appearance shifts with time of day and levels of light and with the interplay of colours around them. In strong sunlight, they take on a bronze sheen, and in April, our weather is so variable, their appearance seems to change every 5 minutes. This is a hardy and reliably perennial triumph tulip, growing to 45 centimetres or 18 inches tall. Returning year after year, planted in well-drained soil or compost, happy in sunshine or partial shade, and has a light fragrance. Pretty, perennial and problem-free. It's an absolute 10 out of 10 tulip. Narcissus' cool flame is so suited to its evocatively dichotomous name. It offers fire and ice in one perfect package. The ruffled flames of its corona flicker out with an apricot glow, deepening with saturated colour as the bloom matures, set against a pristine petalscape. Growing to about 45 centimetres or 18 inches, it is very hardy, sturdy, sun-loving, happy in containers, and will naturalise in well-drained, neutral or slightly acidic soil. It is a cultivar produced in the 1960s by the king of American daffodil hybridists, the late Grant E. Mitch, as was Jetfire, another beloved and earlier flowering bicolour in our garden. It's interesting that many of the 60s and 70s hybrid daffodils seem to reflect the space race and popular fascination with space travel at a time when science fiction was becoming technological reality, with names like Jetfire asteroid, earthlight, flaming meteor, moonfire, outer space, satellite, spaceship, my favourite, Star Trek, and stratosphere. And continuing that space theme, literal cool flames, which burn at low temperatures, are hard to produce on Earth, but have been created in the microgravity environment of the International Space Station. I wonder whether some 50 years from now, plant names chosen in the 2020s will be seen to define aspects of the era we're living in today. Illuminated by sunlight, cool flame makes the heart sing and is the very embodiment of the uplifting spring sensation that only daffodils seem to bring. Bees are drawn to its nectar like moths to a cool flame. It's such a pleasure to pull up the blinds in the morning and be greeted by a cheerful collection of spring bulbs on the table display. But this joy is tinged with a sense of relief because we've been experiencing what seems like an unusually high frequency of storms here. So it's always a comfort to discover in the morning that the whole bulb theatre hasn't been blown off the table overnight and scattered around the garden in a big plant pot melodrama. Fortunately, the display has soldiered on through the westerly gales, and here are some of our favourite stars this month. This is Tulip Persian Pearl, a true gem looking absolutely gorgeous even before petals open. The pale pearly green outer petal lining is pretty packaging that unwraps itself to reveal bold cerise pink silk. And a pool of molten gold in the centre. This is a hardy perennial, thriving in full sun or partial shade, growing to about 15 centimetres or 6 inches high, happy in containers and will naturalise if planted in the ground. Glandora prostrata, heavenly blue, is blessed with a celestial galaxy of beautiful flowers on low spreading evergreen foliage. This is a male hairy-footed flower bee, showing his appreciation for the rich supply of nectar. One landed on my hand the other day, so incredibly soft, furry and slightly tickly. This is a perennial plant, thriving in well-drained acidic soil or ericaceous compost, and with its Mediterranean heritage, loves full sun, although it is hardy in most of the UK. Popular as ground cover, especially in rock gardens and gravel gardens, it will continue flowering on into summer. This is a female hairy-footed flower bee who adores heavenly blue almost as much as the bee's best friend, grape hyacinth. As well as gaining pollinator approval, this plant holds the Royal Horticultural Society Award of Garden Merit. Bellis perennis white conjures up the nostalgia of traditional cottage gardens and paths lined with rows of pom-pom flower heads, or royal ascot in the 1920s with ladies in fashionable hats, festooned with clusters of fluffy white daisy flowers. When combined with punchier pink and red varieties, planted amongst a carpet of primulas and wallflowers, they make me think of the Victorian legacy of eye-catching displays in carefully tended public parks. bursting with cheerful spring jewels of many colours. Bellis perennis white is a sweetly pretty biennial flower, with foliage in its first year and blooming through the whole spring season of its second year. It is suited to full sun or partial shade, and is hardy for most of the UK. This is one of many cultivars of the dear little common daisy that livens up our lawns, and which has been cultivated by plantsmen and women for at least 5 centuries. It particularly attracts small pollinators like hoverflies, who are a vital presence in the garden, many feeding on pesky aphids. And this white form is a personal favourite. Its gentle, simple and delightful charm feels endearingly timeless. Little Beauty is a very appealing miniature tulip that radiates a warm pink glow. In contrast to the cool-toned pink of Persian pearl, its outer petals are smudged with pistachio, and at its heart a deep blue centre feathers into the white halo. The cup releases a delightful scent, designed to attract pollinators and very pleasing to human senses too. This reliably perennial tulip is a sun lover, originating from the Mediterranean, Asia Minor and the Caucasus, but fully hardy in the UK climate. Given good drainage, it will be happy in containers or planted in the ground, where it will often form a colony given hospitable conditions. If you have rocky soil, Little Beauty will feel perfectly at home, as though it is on the distant mountain slopes of its ancestral terrain. As April arrives, the stark country lanes fast take on their lush spring mantle, as winter's hedgerows soften with fresh leafy growth, and one of the most delightful sights at this time of year, lighting up damp shady banks and meadows, is Cardamine pratensis, commonly known as cuckoo flower or lady's smock. Its simple, elegant form sparkles with lilac, pale pink or white petals borne on slender stems sent up from basil leaf rosettes, which are edible, releasing a pungent peppery taste of cress. Cuckoo flowers are native to much of Europe and West Asia, also naturalising in parts of North America. They are so called because buds open as the first cuckoos are heard calling in the British Isles, usually finishing flowering by the time cuckoos depart for their non-stop flight to Central Africa at the end of June. Several years ago at our house, when the windows were open one May afternoon and the kitchen cuckoo clock called out the hour, it was answered by a real-life distant cuckoo, so a cuckoo flower seems an apt choice to introduce to the garden, to remind us of this surreal bird call moment. Hardy to below -20 degrees Celsius or -4 Fahrenheit, it attracts a range of pollinators, including the orange-tipped butterfly, which lays eggs on this plant. Cuckoo flower likes moisture, but copes with poor draining soil. A flower bestowed with many names, this plant is also known as mayflower, milkmaids, meadowcress and fairy flower, due to its sacred importance to fairies in European folklore. And true to its otherworldly associations, there is definitely something quite magical about this special plant. Finding a bee feeding in a daffodil is delightful. Finding a snail feeding in your daffodil is frightful, but inevitable in current conditions. Having experienced almost double the average rainfall in March, there followed double the trouble with slugs and snails, which thrive and multiply in damp environments. The nibbled petals of larger flowered narcissi tend to look just a little artfully dishevelled around the edges, but still retain a beautiful presence. However, with our miniature Narcissus, the charming little minnow, whole clusters of flower heads have disappeared night after night, which has been such a disappointment because they are not only wonderfully pretty in appearance, but also so deliciously scented, and we've grown them for years with no pest problem. Another first has been slugs eating fresh bamboo leaves. This whole plant went to seed in the summer, and we watched in dismay as the leaves browned and died. So we drastically reduced it in size, watered it excessively, and since November fresh foliage has been emerging. The formerly pristine looking new leaves have now been snacked on. However, there is a secret weapon, or rather a secretive weapon, a hungry newt patrolling the garden. It moves very slowly, but fortunately so does its gastropod prey. There has been another puzzling damage situation with our Cyclamen persicum tubers. These flowers had been performing fantastically well since October. These are not rated as UK hardy. The RHS recommends a minimum temperature of 5 to 10 degrees Celsius, but somehow in containers in a sheltered spot they managed to survive winter frosts and sub-zero temperatures, providing sustenance to an active bumblebee queen all through December and continuing to flower right into April. But suddenly, as seen here, leaves and flowers began to droop on two plants. Investigation revealed almost all roots had been nibbled off, and although the tuber was covered in monkey pedes, also known as penny sows, pillbugs, trundlers, and many other regional names, it wasn't clear whether they had caused the original damage or, just like the unfortunate schoolchild who gets caught holding a pen when someone else has just graffitied a rude message on the wall, were they all just in the wrong place at the wrong time? Because there are, after all, monkey pedes all over our garden where absolutely no damage occurs. Still, I couldn't find any of the usual suspects such as vine weevil larvae. There were so many promising buds thwarted before their prime. These plants were definitely worth trying to save. I gently brushed off the monkey pedes, removed dying leaves and mature flowers, leaving new buds intact, and soaked the tubers in water for 24 hours so that any remaining stumps of roots could absorb some moisture. We planted them into small containers of fresh compost, with the tuber tops just level with the surface of compost, added a gravel mulch and watered well. Very soon the buds began to open, although producing much smaller sized blooms than before. So 7 months of flowering resumes, and bees will continue to benefit until these cyclamen fall into dormancy for the summer season, hopefully returning back on form in the autumn. Our 2 container-grown apple trees are just coming into leaf now. They are the tasty red Windsor variety on M9 dwarfing rootstock, and I've planted cherries underneath them. Cherries in the form of a cultivar of Phlox subulata called Cherry, a mat-forming evergreen alpine with vivid pink flowers. We have traditionally grown sempervivum across the gravel mulch around the base of the trees. These were selected to represent all the shades of the ripening apples above. We decided to add some extra eye-catching colour to this subtle backdrop, but if you know our rhyme, right plant, right place for happy roots and a happy face, we have committed more of, I won't say a disgrace, but definitely a planting misplace. And that is because I misread the height and spread for Cherry as 12 centimeters by 12 centimeters or 5 inches by 5 when I was actually looking at the description for a different Phlox cultivar. This plant will want to expand for ½ meter. Therefore, if we decide to keep the plants in situ, this new partnership is going to take quite a bit of management to ensure the Phlox doesn't smother the Sempis. So I can't recommend our planting choice for this particular situation, but here's our technique for creating a planting mound on containers. After gently removing the existing succulents, I built up a retaining wall using a damp mixture of 50% general compost, 50% bonsai compost. I mixed the remaining gravel with enriched compost to fill the centre, creating a gentle mound above the roots of the tree, but not surrounding the trunk, because the union on our grafted trees needs to stay above soil level, otherwise shoots may come up from the roots and we might end up with a non-dwarf scion taking over. Nutrients from the enriched compost will filter down to the apple tree roots. I smartened up the sempervivums, removing dead leaves before planting them back in the mound of earth, along with the new Phlox plants. The seashells are not purely decorative, they will serve a functional purpose too, because until plants get established and bind everything together with their roots, I will water directly onto the surface of a large shell, which mitigates the force of the flow. Otherwise, I risk washing compost straight off the slope. I can also water directly on the larger sempervivums. They don't mind because they have excellent drainage. A gravel mulch is essential to help retain moisture, otherwise a mound of compost like this can dry out quickly. On the branches, blossom buds are emerging. I think the forthcoming harmony of pale pink flowers in the canopy and bright pink sparkling beneath will be a very pretty sight in a few weeks. But if we ultimately do decide that we want to move the Phlox flowers, we will choose a sunny spot with good drainage, or perhaps a dedicated container where Cherry can romp away to her heart's content and spill over the sides. At this time of year, it's not only the weather changing every 5 minutes, but the appearance and atmosphere of the garden itself. The texture, form, and colours all seem to evolve, change, combine and contrast in different ways as each 5 minutes goes by, filling us all with a sense of anticipation, hope and renewed vigour. Although sometimes we just need 5 minutes rest. Thank you for joining us to share in these magical changes, and thank you to everyone who supports Apple Pea Fern C by subscribing, liking and engaging with us at the channel. We'd love you to join us across the coming seasons, and we wish everyone flowerful times and nature-soothed minds.
Mm-hmm.